Good morning, everybody. Paul here, coming at you with your crypto coffee update. I got news and I got conferences. I also have coffee, hence the name of this segment. So, if you'll just join me now for a simultaneous sip where we share a brief moment in serenity to sip coffee together as we kick off the day right. Good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the news of the day, our first segment. We're going to be talking about Venezuela, and it is a doozy. Hyperinflation in the country has surpassed Weimar Germany in the 1920s. That's what we use as a historical precedent to demonstrate how bad hyperinflation can get. So really, this is off the charts. We talked about this yesterday in a podcast with Juan. You can get some more information there, but we're just going to touch on this again today to unpack just how intense this is unfolding. You can see inflation has topped 100,000% as one Bitcoin now costs 60 million Venezuela bolivars. Let's continue. A redenomination looms, as reported by crypto commentators, including Purse.io. The price of one Bitcoin ballooned. Yesterday, it was only 44 billion bolivars. Now it's 59 billion. So just in one day, a huge jump in inflation. And again, this is largely unprecedented since by this time, historically, much of the populace had already abandoned such useless mediums of exchanges. But given the veracity of state power in this situation, it makes things a bit more complicated. According to Bloomberg's Café con Leche Index, which tracks the rate of inflation in Venezuela in lieu of official government statistics, which of course are oftentimes extremely unreliable, it actually tracks how many bolivars it takes to buy a café con leche, a coffee with milk, a much more realistic on-the-ground index. And right now it costs about 2.5 million Venezuela bolivars to do so. Just outrageous. The highest price ever recorded by far. Again, that's what happens with 100,000% annual inflation. And here you maybe could see a little chart. The left-hand side is completely barren because that tracks inflation and price of Venezuela. It actually tracks the local Bitcoin volume in Venezuela. So almost the inflation of the price of Bitcoin can be traced alongside this. But notice the right-hand side of the chart and how individuals are just flooding into the Bitcoin markets in Venezuela, trying to get their hands on any kind of digital currency really that will maintain its value. And a lot of this voracity and hunger for Bitcoin specifically has been kicked off by a new denomination of money. As you saw in the previous article, Maduro is looking at making new money, and this time it's digital. Panic is kicked off as an official announcement was heard today. You can see here Crypto Public Spaces saw an uptick of Venezuela's posting talking about a surprise announcement from Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro about the minimum wage being increased from just $1, a 30-fold increase to $30. So wildly unsustainable in terms of price jumps, but of course with hyperinflation, that's unsustainable too. The new bolivar, however, will have an exchange rate of 3,600 for $60, or 1 petro. So you can see here the shift over to a potential digital solution. But right now, people are at the streets just going crazy trying to buy anything since most of the stores are closed. After all, remember, an increase from $1 to $30 in minimum wage often means that shop owners, they're going to have to shutter their doors simply because the cost to keep doing business is just ballooned by 30-fold. So you can imagine the impact this would have on your average Venezuelan citizen who's just trying to get something to eat from the shop that's now closed. And that's exactly what people are saying here. The guard is only identifying himself by the name Luis, assumingly in fear of government lashback. But yeah, he's saying the supermarket is closed, and even though Maduro has promised to cover the wages for the first 3 months of this transition, there's speculation as to how he would go about doing that and how the government would be able to keep all of these enterprises afloat in the face of hyperinflation like this. As the article says, however, Venezuelan government is basically doing what any government would do in this situation, trying to ditch the old worthless money with promise of a new money with a reasonable amount of zeros in it. And realistically, given that the people on the ground, the individuals in the country who just are trying to live their day-to-day lives, those are the people most heavily impacted by this dictatorship, really, as all governments are. It's highly unfortunate, and we can only wish them the best and do what we can with our efficacy. We'll get to that momentarily, but let's unpack what's going on with this potential digital solution. We call it a potential digital solution since the petro, as it's called, really has some opaque information around it. At first, individuals thought that it was on the Ethereum network, but it looks like it was launched on an NEM Mosaic sidechain on the NEM blockchain. We covered this during launch a few months ago in a Crypto Coffee update, so if you want to go take a look at that, I'll put it below in the description. However, discerning the actual market price of the Petro is, as said, extremely difficult. Most of the exchanges that list it, they require documents for access, and so there's really no information as to how it's being traded, or if at all. One thing's for certain, the chances that it's actually tracking the price of 1 barrel of oil, as was purported at launch, is pretty slim. Perhaps most disheartening about this article is the conclusion that says whether they will succeed, time will say, but one hopes this economic catastrophe ends, for there are far too many children starving in Venezuela, and that is such a tragic and true reality. But placing any kind of credulity on government that they'll do the right thing and try and have the people's best interest at heart is, unfortunately, my opinion, far too idealistic. After all, it's the recklessness of centralized authority that got this country into the state it's in today, so this solution will hopefully be a temporary one as Venezuela moves towards a more liberal financial situation, allowing them to exchange and transact without the threat of the state superimposed on daily commerce. However, if you feel compelled to do something for the people of Venezuela with your own two hands, with your own efficacy, as I said, there are plenty of individuals on the ground doing the hard work for us, and those individuals are just absolutely fantastic. First off, we have EatBCH, which is Jose. He's an individual who accepts donations in Bitcoin Cash specifically, so if you have some Bitcoin Cash, or if you're just interested in helping out, it would be very much appreciated. The guy does great work. Also, Digibyte is becoming more active in Venezuela, as Josiah Spackman, a gentleman with the project, Digibyte Foundation ambassador, he's launching a campaign to expand upon a donation campaign that was already completed in the country, so they're looking to go back for a second time. So definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of Digibyte, or if you're just trying to help out the people of Venezuela. With that said, let's shift gears a little bit and move into crypto hedge fund partners saying that 90% of Binance's employees choose to get paid in the BNB token. Again, it's not just impoverished or war-torn regions that are looking towards cryptocurrency as something that offers more financial freedom, it's people all around the world. Now, this is from the TechCrunch founder, Michael Arrington, and he's saying that he spoke to CZ, CEO of Binance, and indeed, 90% of the employees are pretty happy to get paid in the native BNB token. He even called these people smart people, assumingly because BNB has been performing quite well relative to the rest of the crypto market. Originally distributed in the ICO for Binance, the coin has some pretty nice perks. Not only does it give you discounts on the platform when trading, but any referral also sees a nice commission. Not to mention that the supply of BNB is actually decreasing as Binance is buying back and burning tokens in order to drive the value up consistently. Definitely not a bad strategy for what was once a young and growing exchange to help it quickly rise to the #1 spot, and it looks like that strategy worked. Next up, we have a Wall Street demand for crypto rises as exchange activity thrives in the bear market. This is something I mentioned before on this channel, that smart money is called smart money for a reason. They're buying when there's blood in the streets. After all, it's said that you have to be greedy when people are fearful, and fearful when people are greedy, and that seems to ring true with Wall Street. Let's go ahead and examine what's going on. In June, David Solomon, the new CEO of Goldman Sachs, essentially said that they're keeping an eye on cryptocurrency-based derivatives and Bitcoin specifically. Quote from Solomon, "We are clearing some futures around Bitcoin, talking about doing some other activities there, but it's going very cautiously. We're listening to our clients and trying to help our clients as they're exploring those things too." Again, this is smart money, and they got a lot of cash on the line, so reasonably they're going to take a more slow-going approach to figure out exactly what these digital assets are all about, and frankly, not to jump into the market and cause too many fluctuations. After all, if you were to inject $100 billion into the cryptocurrency market, things would go crazy, no doubt. However, these institutions would then have such a large holding that not only would it raise fear of centralization, but it would also create a very large amount of due diligence on the part of a very few amount of entities that could quickly become unmanageable. So reasonably, this is a straightforward strategy. But with names like Goldman Sachs, it's little wonder why they're taking a slow approach. New names sometimes can move a bit more quickly. 2 months ago, Robinhood co-CEO Vlad Tenvin, which secured a $5.6 billion valuation after the integration of its own cryptocurrency business, they said that the company's intentionally not making any money right now. They're treating it like a break-even business as they build an ecosystem and infrastructure that will allow onboarding for more institutional investors. So, a potentially wise move as these Wall Street investors look look towards stable infrastructure for onboarding assumingly very large amounts of capital into the crypto space. That's all we have for the news of the day. Let me know what you thought about these articles below. If you have any more information about donations to Venezuela, that would be fantastic. Or if you have an article that you think would have been worthy of the news bite that we may have missed, just let me know in the comments, and that would be very much appreciated. Moving on to the conferences for Monday, August 20th. Blockshow America is kicking off in Las Vegas, and Komodo is having another AMA today. For Tuesday, August 21st, the Blockchain Conference Seattle 2018 is happening where else? Seattle, Washington. And we have Blockchain and Brunch in the Hamptons, which is a over $150 to I think it was $350 nice little brunch where they're going to get together and talk about blockchain. Kind of seems a bit pricey for my taste. I'll stick with my delicious breakfast and coffee. But nonetheless, if you're in the area and you're feeling so inclined, seems like a nice opportunity to have a high-class conversation over brunch. With that said, that's all we have for conferences for the day and for this Crypto Coffee update. As usual, all of the links below in the description, as well as a big old list of B-list tokens. They're fine projects, there's just way too much to talk about, so take a look there to see if any of your favorite projects have stuff going on. You don't want to miss those. And thank you so much for watching. Your support really does mean the world. I read every one of your comments, and they really do leave me with some great feelings. I'm extremely elated to know that the information that I spend time aggregating is able to help folks out there make better informed decisions about their own lives and their own portfolios. So if you found it helpful, a comment or just a like on YouTube or Viewly really does go a long way in just keeping us going and keeping us bringing this information and making the crypto space the best it could possibly be. So with that said, everybody, have a fantastic start to your week. Thanks again for watching. My name is Paul, signing off. We are Cryptide, and remember, the tide is rising, and the times are changing.